Okay. So one of the things that I wanted to show, this just happens to be a property that I was working on earlier. Sometimes DataMaster will bring in a photo that is not the front photo. And that's because the real estate agent in the MLS has listed this photo as the primary photo in their listing. So one of the things that you can do is you can select whichever photo you want to be the primary photo, and then just right here in the middle, hit set as main photo. And now that photo is the one that will transfer into your software instead of this one that was of the living room. It'll be the whichever one you set as the main photo, and then you just hit save, and now you'll see it's corrected itself. So I like to go through and kind of look and see if there's a better angle, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to drive by these properties later, and I want to be able to make sure it's the right property that I'm looking at. It uploads into my tablet, and then I take them on my tablet, and so that way I know that I'm looking at the right photo when I get to the property. So that's a way that you can change the photo. One other thing that I wanted to show was we don't talk about this very often, but we do have this this comments page that deals with each of the comparables individually. And recently we had some appraisers ask us about how to edit it and what they can do with it. And so I thought I would show it. This has been designed, the original design was to be able to augment your work file and put everything in one place for each of the comparables. And you can, so this is a little addendum, and it will go into your, you can print it as a PDF. In some of the form vendors, I know Total, it goes right into their work folder. It becomes an addendum within the report. I think with Bradford, you can send it in as an addendum as well. But you can get the listing history, and it'll take a second to do that. It's going to go back out to the MLS. As it's doing that, I'll start here at the top. This information that is bolded is information that came directly from the data that you brought in. So what we've done is we've analyzed the data and said that and identified which source we relied on for whatever field it is. So, or if the data source is the same, then we're going to say there's no conflict in the data. You can type in here. So if you have an assistant, we know some appraisers that use this, where their assistant will make some updating, some verification, some changes, and they'll make a note here so that the appraiser can see it. But I could put here, this is, let's see. Property is located on a typical residential street. View is residential. You can also, so across the top here, it has original list price, final list price, the sold price, and then the list to sale price ratio of both the original and the sold. And then any concessions are also listed. The original list date, and then the final contract date, and then the sold date and the contract date. Oh, I'm sorry. FPC, this is the final price change date. So there was no change. If they had lowered the price, you would see the date in which they lowered that. And if you just hover over, it will tell you it will tell you what the acronyms or what the abbreviations are for. So now we see here that the listing history has come in. We can see this particular listing, the prior 4 years ago, all the way back as far as your MLS records, and then the deed history. And I happen to have two data sources plugged in for mine. So I have the Black Knight history and the CoreLogic public record history there as well. If you make any comments in this work file note section in here, they do not transfer into the report. Those are for your non-public facing comments, maybe notes that you've made about the property. So this can be used as kind of a digital workplace. You can also cut and paste notes into this area. It fully functions. If I have a note from an agent or something, I can copy it from another source and then paste it in, and that is all fully functional. You can also list, so you can use this to put into your report. But let's say I don't want these photos here. I want maybe the front photo. So I can grab the photos and I can move them around. Let's see if can't remember how to do it. There we go. So now that number 1 is there. And then if I click on this one and say I want to put the kitchen in here, I just, oh, that's not a very good, oh, here you go. Here's a good picture of the kitchen. So there's the kitchen. So I'm just grabbing it and dragging it over, and then there's the bathroom. And maybe I want to talk about the detached garage. So when I create this or print this, I'll show you what it looks like. You just save it to a PDF. And this is what it looks like. Let me reduce the size here so it's a little easier to see. So this is the nice little printout that it creates. And if it runs into 2 pages, if you only had one data source, this would all show up on one. But it's a really nice addendum that you can add into your reports, and all the information about that comparable is there. I have the ability to my PDF will let me edit text, and so I can type through some of this. But if you can't do that, then you would need to make any edits prior to creating the PDF. So I'd have to comment here in the addendum before it went in. So I could type in here updated kitchen and large detached garage. And move that kitchen back in. Should be saving that. For some reason it doesn't want to save. I think this is more my computer than the program. Sometimes my images are kind of crazy. Anyway, so that's this comments addendum, and you have one of those. We save this even if you're not using it for your work file. If you've made any changes or notes to it, and you don't move it in. The place that you can move it into your form vendor is in the review and send section. This, on the far left here, the DataMaster standard addendum, that's what we were looking at. If I want to just save them to PDF, I just hit the save to PDF, and now all of them, we'll see that all of them have been saved to wherever you save your PDFs. So we have all of them saved in here. If you want to include them in your report, and if you use total, then you would select this one, and it will go in the total work file. And I can show you how those end up in your report here in a second as I move to my report. So this is where you would move those into your report. You can also print in the center section here, the green print. You can print those standard addendums as well right here. You can also print all of the MLS sheets for your work file. The MLS sheets are those that are individual here for each of the comparables. To get a print copy of all of those at once, you would just click on the all MLS sheets. Same with the deeds, you can print those, and you can print these either to PDF or to a printer. I suggest printing them to a PDF first. They seem to come out a little bit cleaner. And then if you want a hard copy, then print from your PDF viewer. So before I send anything to the report, one of the other things I wanted to talk about today is the market analysis. So it's becoming quite a chore to figure out which direction the market is going right now. I either am finding that I don't have a lot of recent sales data. So the market slowed down so much that now we don't have data points, and that's becoming a challenge. Also, it seems like some of the data that is coming in is really sporadic. It's inconsistent, and it doesn't really help me get any conclusions. And so there's a couple of things that we can do to help with that. Whenever you have more data, it seems to make things a little bit easier, a little bit better. And there's a couple things that I've been doing recently to help. So this particular subject property only has one bedroom in the GLA. So the first thing I did was I searched for just one bedroom GLA properties, and I only had 7 listings. 1 had been canceled, 3 were sold, 2 were under contract, and one of them, or one was under contract and 2 were active. And one of the ones that was active, it was actually mislisted by the MLS. It had 3 bedrooms in GLA, and so I eliminated it. So I really don't have enough information to start doing some trending. So I went back to my MLS, and instead of looking for only those with 1 bedroom in the GLA, I increased it to include those that had 2 bedrooms in the GLA, because they tend to move in the same direction, at least from a standpoint of trending. Their values are different, but they trend very similar in this particular market. And that's what I included in my competing market analysis. So that's what this data here is those that have a maximum of 2 bedrooms in GLA. And that gave me 100 listings in the past 12 months and 215 in the last 2 years. So now I'm starting to feel a little more comfortable about the trending. But if I look here at the last 3 months and I sort by sold, sort by sold here, I still don't have anything really super recent. My most recent close date is now 2-3 weeks old. I had a couple right at the end of December. But really the bulk of what sold was the last part of October, first part of November. And so that's still a little bit older than I would like. I'd like something more recent. And remember, these columns, you can slide them around and you can sort by any of them if you want to do some editing here with the data. So that's what I have in my competing market. And then the other thing I did was I went to my neighborhood and I searched for all properties that did not have an HOA fee, and I let the age run. I took off any parameters so that I got everything in the neighborhood that has sold in the neighborhood boundaries, and I wanted to eliminate patio homes or townhomes, condominiums, and so that's why I said it can't have an HOA. It can't have an HOA fee, and then I started getting a lot more data in the more recent time period. I have now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 since the beginning of the year in the last 2 weeks. I have a lot more in December and November filled in very nicely. And so when I start looking at my graphs now, and I'm looking at the list to sale or the median list and sale price, where I have some gaps here now that's starting to fill in, and I can kind of see what's happening since the middle of the summer. Some of my comparables I'm going to have to adjust for the market adjustment or the time adjustment, because they went under contract in June, last March, last February. These are the 1-bedroom comparables that I really need to use. So I'm going to end up doing an analysis of what the market change was from February, what it was from March, and what it was from June. And this will help me as I start analyzing and looking through here. I can kind of hover along the trend line and see what the list to sale price ratio was at different points of time, and then figure what it is from that time to the current, and make that adjustment. The other thing that's helpful here is I know I have some sales. I want to compress this data a little bit. So with the data loaded, I'm going to go to my settings file, and I'm going to change my market analysis, and I'm going to look at just the last 6 months. So I have one sale from actually, let's do 9 months. And this will help me to see what's happening in the past 9 months. And you'll see that what it does is it completely recalculates from that 9 months ago as the beginning point in time. It doesn't just magnify or zoom in, but we actually have a change in the trend line from May. And you can see how that looks. So we had this decline on the market data until about November, and then when interest rates started to settle down a little bit, we had a little bit of an uptick in the market. In the neighborhood, it's still continuing to trend down. So this dark line here is my solds. The blue is the listings. And so we're still kind of in a decline in the overall neighborhood. It makes it a little bit easier to consume if you look at a specific period in time. So that was 9 months. I need to go back to June or to February. So let's change it again, and this time we'll put in 12 months. I could put in 11, but I'll put in 12 months. And so now we're just looking at the last 12 months. And this becomes a little bit more helpful in trying to figure out what the percentage of change was between, and we don't tell you what that line percentage of change was. You've got to kind of look at it. So if you just hover, you'll see here's what the price per square foot was. If you want to do sale price instead, you can look at what the median sale price was and now what it is, and then you can calculate that. But I suggest you changing your number of months back to get a more accurate percentage of change over that period of time. So that's one of the ways that you can use this tool to be able to come up with your percentage of change. You can also look at the summary graph. It changes as well. So here now we're looking at 11 months. If you click on the slider bar or hover over the slider bar, you can zoom in on a particular point of time, but it doesn't recalculate that trend line. All it does is zoom in. And so that's probably not the best way if you're trying to figure out what the change in the trend line was. There's it might actually be easier to look at here. This is only median price per square foot. There's not a setting to be able to see it as a overall sale price. But this graph is available for both the neighborhood and the competing market in the summary section. And so you can see it. You can see it here as well. These red diamonds are those 3 sales. So I can look at each of those points in time. And even though this one was selling for $400 a square foot, the median square foot at that time was $360 or $359. So you can kind of see how that one compared. It's probably a remodeled property, and that's why it was selling higher. We do give you the polynomial curve here as well if you want to take a look at that, but I suggest that you can compress the grid by your settings in order to get the change in time. Hopefully that makes sense. Some of the other key indicators of what's happening in the market would be the list to sale price ratio. And that's in our chart here below for each of the months that's displayed. So you can see that recently that list to sale price before the feds were raising the rates, we were in the 102, 105, 107 range. And now you can see we're in the 90, 98, 100. You know, we've certainly slowed down. This does not take into account concessions. And so we need to be careful if concessions are becoming a predominant factor. And we can see here in the last in the last 6 months, from 4 to 6 months through to the 0 to 3, concessions are about 69% of the transactions. And so these numbers with the concessions out might even be lower on a list to sale price ratio than if you take out the percent or the concessions that are being paid. And so you can find those here in the comments on the 1004MC, the 1004MC section. So one other thing I wanted to point out today, I have loaded 750 days worth of data into both my market and my neighborhood. And so at the top here of page 1, the 1-unit housing predominant price and predominant age, these numbers reflect all 750 days worth of data, not just the past 12 months. Typically, an appraiser will report the past 12 months. And so the past 12 months is going to be here on the 1004MC. So I'm going to want to edit this and say that this is 175. I like to just kind of round everything. I would do 510. And then my median for the past 12 months, I'm usually going to go with this number right here, or a combination of these two columns. In this case, I'm just going to put 310. The age is probably not that far off because we're just 1 year difference. And so I'm going to round those. So now this is what's going to come into my report. And I'll show you where that happens. And then I did need a couple of more sales. I have these 3 1-bedrooms, but I also want to look at a couple of other sales. And so the way I'm going to do that is I'm just going to add them from the market analysis. And I'm going to sort by close date. I want a couple of newer sales. This is not the neighborhood data. This is the market analysis data. And so I want to look for something fairly close that's newer than July, because my most recent sale right now is in July. So I have this one on Quincy that's right around the corner from where I am. This one on Lane Avenue is also right around the corner. Looks like it's a little bit bigger, so that might be a good one to put in. And then this Jackson one's a little far away. So maybe I'll keep those two as my more recent, even though they have 2 bedrooms. So I'm going to add those to the grid. So at this point, it's going back out to the MLS, and it's grabbing the new it's grabbing all the MLS data, the photos, and I'm going to say close. And this one on oak is quite a bit nicer than my subject. And it has a full basement. Both of these have full basements. So I'm not going to use this one on oak that's older. Instead, I'm going to use this this one on Lane. So I'm going to move it over to comp number 2. I'm going to put that oak one as number 7. And what it's doing here is when you're moving them around, if I said that I wanted this number 5 to be number 1, number 5 is going to go in the 1 spot, and then 1 is going to go to 2, 2 is going to go to 3, 3 is going to go to 4, and so on. And so you want to kind of start with your number 1 comparable and put it very first. I like this one on Quincy. It's actually, other than bedroom count, probably the most similar to my subject. My subject only has a part basement, like a cellar. So it's really the one that's the most similar, and it's from November. So I'm going to put it as number 1. I've used this one before as a comparable. My comp tracker icon right here tells me that. So I'm just going to select everything here and update that and close. And so that now it's exactly the way it was when it came into my report. And I think I want this one on Liberty to be comp number 3. And it looks like I've used it before also for the same transaction. So I'm going to update it. So I don't need to do any work on it. Number 5 was an active listing. So my sale prices or my list price has changed. The number of days on market has changed. So I don't want, and it's under contract now. So I'm unselecting, so taking the green off of items that are different. So that one is done. And number 6, I've also used before. All right. So pretty fortunate for me. 4 of my 6 comparables are pretty much done. I've cleaned those up. And so now I'm just going to, well, it looks like the document verification for the deeds is all finished as well. So now I'm going to send this to my report. Well, I don't want number 7 to go in. So I'm going to come and I'm going to unselect number 7. And now it's going to tell me that only 6 properties are going to go in. I'm going to include that worksheet in my report so you can see how that goes in, and then also in my total file, work file. So I'm now going to hit send to report. And at this point, DataMaster is creating the file to interact with your form vendor. Once this part stops and it gets ready to transfer to your form vendor, it's kind of out of our control. Sometimes the form vendors will make some changes, and we're not aware of those. So we might have, if you have challenges, please let us know. So this is the right property I'm going to import it into. I want to keep all the data that's in my report there and merge everything else. So I'm going to say import. Now this might look a little different if you don't use total. So now we can see that everything moved in. Those addendums, let's see where they moved into the report. Oh, I think they moved right here into the comments addendum. That's where those are. They're also in my work file. For my digital work file, they're right here. Also, my deed verification came in. I told it to bring that in as well. So I have them there. So that's how everything transfers into the report. And I'm just going to close that. So any questions from anybody? I that's what I had kind of prepared. Oh yeah, go ahead. I'll take any questions.
Yeah, I have a question. How did you get your BlackRock and CoreLogic both into your deed section?
So that's a great question. You have to contact DataMaster, and in your data source in your account, they can put both of them in. By default in Utah, we switched over a little while ago, and I think we're using Black Knight right now. We've actually found that it's a little bit more accurate in most of the areas in Utah. But we will be, I've been testing it for a while, and it seems to be working pretty good to have multiple data sources. So when you click on your deed now, if you have both data sources, I'll show you just what some of the differences are. So here's the CoreLogic. Black Knight's a little bit behind on this property that's sold. And they'll go back and forth. So I really like having two. And I think in some counties like Morgan County, Box Elder, Cache County, Black Knight is actually quicker coming across. In other counties, like Davis County, CoreLogic doesn't give you the doc number. They give you a book and page number, and Black Knight gives you a doc number. And so there's little things about both that I like. And so I like having both of them, but you'd have to call into the office to get them to set it up to where you have both of them. So that's a great question. All righty. Well, I really don't have anything else prepared for today. So have a good week. I will be doing a live demo of DataMaster on Thursdays now from 11 to 12. So you can join us any Thursday, and I'll do a live demo. It's a little different than the Tuesday tips. We're going to go through some of the setup stuff and more functionality, and you may find it helpful and useful as well. So Robert, it was good to see you.
You say
You,
that live demo Thursday?
Yeah, Thursday at 11, and we'll be sending out a registration link, I think later today or tomorrow for those.
Okay, thank you.
Are you using click forms or total?
Click forms.
Click forms, okay. Yeah, so click forms, when you're bringing those DataMaster addendums in, I think those come in as a oh, I'm trying to remember the word that click forms uses, an exhibit. I think those come in as an exhibit for you. And then you can print them to a PDF if you need.
Yes, that's right. They come in as exhibit.
Yeah, yeah. So, all righty. Well, super. Thank you. You have a great day.
Thanks.
All right.